Hi everybody, and welcome on this dreary day. Today it's raining, it's miserable, certainly not what we've had over the last couple of weeks. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Horwich North East's Labour leaflet. Now I'm not going to criticise it or anything, I'm just going to go through their points they make and explain them from our perspective, and give you the facts from where we stand, because they obviously differ to what's actually in the Labour roars. So first of all, this is a little dig because I find it hilarious every time I see it, is the March 22 edition delivered free of charge to your area. It's kind of like you should be pleased that they're not charging you for this. It's quite funny. First of all, on the front page, they've got anger over the Llama Field decision, and it goes through and tells you about how Kevin and Richard were disappointed about it, as we all were. They are quite right. At the day of the appeal, both Kevin, Richard and myself were at the appeal. Kevin stayed there about two and a half hours. Richard stayed there about an hour, and I was there all day. Richard obviously had work commitments, and I've got no doubt whatsoever that he has written an extensive submission. Normally when it comes to planning issues, Richard is pretty on point, to be fair. Kevin, absolutely. He put in here that he went through the history of the site to the planning inspector. No issue with that at all. Of course, they don't mention that I was there all day and I was providing evidence to the inspector, not just about the history, but also the biodiversity, the links to the neighbourhood plan, the overdevelopment, etc. So they are right. Absolutely disgusting. What they don't tell you is that I was also there, and that it was HBFI that set up the Lever Park Residents Association through Stuart Burke when this first hit the headlines. So let's move on to the next bit. Restart the regeneration of Horwich Town Council. They're claiming that it has stalled. This isn't true. The Regeneration Town Centre, we had a meeting just the other week. It was my first one since I've been elected, but Councillor McKean was in it, as was Richard Sylvester. These things take a long time. You're investing £4 million into the public realm, you know, into works within a town centre. You've got to have public consultations, business consultations. You've got to have pricing and costing worked up by experts. This is not an overnight thing. Moving on, achieve net zero status by 2030. That's a government thing for 2050, I think. Then GM reduced it to 2035. Then Bolton agreed to 2030 under pressure from Extinction Rebellion and the likes. So that's a Bolton Borough initiative. That's a council initiative. It's not Labour's. Although, of course, they jump on any lobbyist group just to gain favour. It is going to cost you. To meet these costs, we need new vans, new equipment to get to that under 2030 pledge by Bolton Council. But it's in the Bolton Council's agreement, so that's coming through anyway. Reclaim pride in our streets. Now, this is interesting. New investments into green areas, street cleaning and tree planting. The tree plantings for the Jubilee, there's a big threshold going on, and community groups that are doing that more than anything else, not Labour. We don't have many green areas left to invest into, but it's certainly not going to come from the Labour group or the Conservatives. It's going to be, mainly it's going to be community groups that do these sort of things. This one upsets me. This one concerns me, not upsets me. Keeping the pound in the borough. Now, not Horwich, not Blackrod, in the borough. And the way they're going to do this, it says, by ensuring more council contracts go to local businesses who employ local people. That's a nice concept, but I think you'll be breaking several contract laws if you exclude people outside, because it's discrimination. You can't control that. You could say, are you going to employ local people? And they'll go, well, yeah, local people is anybody that's working locally. I don't know how they can make that a law from a town hall perspective. This one is hilarious. This one at the bottom. Making our roads safer. Launching a community speed watch initiative, giving local people the power to enforce speed limits. How are they going to deputise you, the person on the end of a camera. Now, myself and Craig Rotherham wanted to do this last year. It's one of our projects we had. We were told by Greater Manchester they didn't have the money or the resources to be able to put these cameras in people's hands just yet. But you're not enforcers. You're not going to enforce anything. At the most, the worst offenders will get a letter from Greater Manchester Police. They're there to give a visual deterrent that, you know, people are aware that you're speeding in these areas. So he can't give local people the power, police powers, to enforce the speed limit, as much as, you know, perhaps some might want that. Kevin McKeon, working hard for Horwich North East. He has been a servant to the community for a very long time, but he's not doing anything at the moment. He's out of the loop, sat at the back, but he's been there. You know him. He is local. You know, take it as it is. Standing up to cuts in our local services. Nothing exciting there, of course, that they'll say that. Whether it's running for litter picking groups, etc. Yeah, agree with all of that. They are cutting quite a lot, and we said as much within our budget. Next bit is a dig at us, facing in two directions. This is where they struggle quite a lot. They go on about our budget. I gave a speech on Bolton Council about why I was doing it, and I've also put a post up on here. Labour and the Conservatives don't get it. We have no whip. We can vote how we like. It's not that we're a disagreement. We have our red lines. For me, of course, we had a working relationship with the Conservative group, but there's always going to be red lines. I always vote on what I morally think was right, and at the time, a 40% increase on the uplift for me just was that red line, particularly at a time when we're facing huge rises in the cost of living, fuel prices, food prices, fuel was just too much for me. On top of all that, as well as you're getting £150 back, even though your bills are going up £600 through the council tax. It isn't a council tax rebate; it's coming through the council tax. And we're just looking at the rest of this leaflet now. Tories and Horwich First reject Labour plans to clean our streets. That's this one here. Now, this is quite a clever one, and it did get rejected, and I did reject it, as did everybody else in the council but Labour. What they want to do is take £200,000 of taxpayer money, create a hub in the centre of Bolton, probably a Labour stronghold like Halliwell or Crompton, so that all the community groups that work within the community feed into. So they create a centralised point outside of the community for the community. And they say this is how the funding will be distributed. Well, we now have Bolton CVS. When we came to power in 2019, we removed these sort of quangos, these sort of groups that Labour had set up, and had an independent body look after the CVS money. And they do lottery money, etc. And you can apply to them if you're a community group, and you can get funding if everything is in order. Sorry. This isn't needed. It is just a waste of money for the centre of Bolton, for them, for their mates to feed into. They basically want to take the local groups away from the locality. Ultimately, if you want to know anything about the CVS and what they do, Peter Wright, HBFI councillor Peter Wright, has been running workshops. He ran one at the RMI Pavilion a few months back, and just recently he ran one at the Hilltops in Blackrod, where a representative of CVS comes to talk to local groups and says how they can set up, give them the details, and you can apply for funding. The truth: Tory lies on clean air charge. Yes, they do. But so do Labour. Remember, there was an administration change in 2019 from Labour to the Conservatives, and this is on our leaflet. In February 2019, when Labour were in charge, they agreed to go into the Greater Manchester Clean Air Zone. If you look on Greater Manchester around February 2019, you'll see the document there that they agreed to. Linda Thomas agreed to it. Then came the change in 2019 to the Conservatives, and in July 2021, the Conservative Cabinet then agreed to it. The Tories don't want you to ask questions. Well, as you've seen my recent videos, they don't. In fact, they don't answer them either. When you do ask them, it is disappointing. And all we can do is get more independent candidates involved in politics locally, because they then have to answer to you through us. And if they don't, you hold them to account. Council tax to rise yet again. Yes, it did, 3.8%. A big chunk of that is the Greater Manchester mayoral precept. Some people agree with it. You know, the policing is failing. They need more investment. But it's not always about money, is it? It's about how well that money is used and utilised. They've made a money grab from Greater Manchester for the police before, and they did employ more police, but they ended up on the Metrolink within the centre of Manchester, not locally. There's a new police chief. Hopefully he'll get things sorted and this money will go where it needs to. But you also need to remember, when they put here council tax to rise yet again, I've lived in my current house now 11 years. 8 of those years were under Labour, and every single year the council tax went up without fail. Let's get to the back page. Don't think there's anything else here. Tory cuts have consequences. That's a national thing. You would expect these things. They go on about the street sweeping, as you know, and yes, we weren't informed. We should have been informed. It makes sense in a way, and I'll explain. So when they cut the road sweeping, I found out the similar way to what Kevin and Richard did. They cut the road sweeping in December, and they'll cut it out till March. They used an analogy basically that it's about cost, and it's not about cost. Well, maybe it is a little bit, but it makes sense. If you swept up all the autumn leaves and you then start gritting for winter, you don't want to send road sweepers then to clear up that grit, because that kind of defeats the object. So I understand the methodology. It allows for the staff to go from the sweepers to, but it doesn't help you if your road is particularly nasty. So HBFI, you probably saw recently, instead of whinging and moaning and going to the newspaper, we actually got involved with a local business, Jenny Dickinson's, and we got there, and then they very kindly got involved with us to clean up some of the areas, extended their route, and we are very grateful for them to do that. Emergency services have always been available, so that's not in there. Now, this is one that we put a post out because we found it hilarious. No playing field or parkland can be lost unless replaced with better facilities. Not once under Labour, when they sold a field or a park, did they return anything. In fact, the only thing we got from the sale when it was still under Labour was at the flip over to the Conservatives, when you, as residents, fought with us as HBFI against Pickups Field, and they handed over a bit of a sop. They gave us £100,000, which is going to be distributed to you through the town centre regen. A little bit of Kevin McKeon. His email address is McKeonPeople. Nice. And Labour Party for Positive Change. That's down to you. What I would say is always look to your local candidates. What are they doing in the area? Are they visible week in, week out? Does Kevin get out there and clean out the bins? No. Is he out there litter picking? No. Although litter picking is a bit of a contentious thing at the moment. Now, we used to always do our litter picking and publicise it, and we kind of backed away from that because every political party now does it. I'll just stick it on my personal page with my kids and go, hey, look what my boy's done. But every political party does it. That's it. I'll pick up, once I get a full copy of the Blackrod one, because it is slightly different, I will pick up on that. There is something in there that has really upset a very prominent Blackrod resident, and quite rightly so, because they out and out lie in it. It is from Karen Millington, who, from what I've heard, is a lovely girl. I've never met her. She's from West Horton. Well, originally from Salford and lives in West Horton, so she's not local. And she clearly doesn't understand the local issues. I hope it's not been negative. It's been pointing out what they've put in their leaflet from my perspective. We'll call some of this out in our leaflets to you. I will be picking up on the Tory comic soon. Incidentally, the Conservatives have just been reprimanded for using council material in their election campaign, as in they've used their council email addresses, which they are not permitted to do by law, by electoral law, and they've been using images within the council chamber, which again, they're not allowed to do. So they have just recently been reprimanded for that. Not like it's like they'd want to cheat or anything, would it? Okay, I hope that's been interesting. It's been 15 minutes. I know, I apologise. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening. And I'll update you again soon. Take care. Goodbye.